Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the flood of news each week, wondering what's really important and how it all affects you? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to this week's Unwrapped, where we peel back the layers of this week's biggest stories, making them easy and enjoyable to understand. I'm your host, Felipe, ready to guide you through the amazing headlines and bring you clear, concise insights into what's happening in your world today. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again, Luis.
Definitely, Felipe. We are at our second episode this year, and quite a lot has happened since our last episode. So I'm excited to dig into these topics. As always, the cyber world never ceases to keep us on our toes.
Great strides that we're making this year. But today, thank you for joining. But today we want to get into pretty interesting article that came out on the Today Show. I'm going to share screen with you. Andy Cohen, he basically gets scammed for money. So what it is that he basically lost his debit card. He reported he lost. Next day, he gets an email that looked like the bank credit card email from the bank. Basically, it was a phishing email. He clicked on the link. It redirected him to a bank account page where he signed in. So most of these hackers will create basically a sign-in page that looks very similar to your bank, where they harvest basically credentials. And at that point, Andy Cohen just let him in. So Andy signed in, and the next day he gets a text where that his credit card is being used, or they're trying to use his credit card. So then his phone rings, and this person on the other end of the phone said it's the bank, and they want to go into like confirming recent charges. So now they're creating a level of trust. This threat actor or hacker is creating trust, and then he gets some codes via text, and then they want to confirm those codes. So what these hackers are doing at this point, they're sending and creating wire transfers, sending money out, and three wire transfers, those three texts that he received. So after that, the most interesting part that I think is that they had him pull up the keypad on his phone, and they had him type, some numbers, and those numbers, the combination of those numbers, basically activates a call forwarding feature on his phone. So now what they did is they forward all calls and texts to another phone. So now they don't need Andy Cohen on the phone anymore. They can basically proceed extracting funds, wiring funds without his interaction.
Wow, that's very
You
powerful.
it's crazy how and in the video, Andy kind of points out that he's a very smart, intellectual, civilian in this world, but as you can see, it can happen to anyone, and these guys are getting very good, especially with AI. Um, Louis, what are some takeaways here?
Well, definitely, I think from the common aspects of these attacks, and even Andy probably recounts here on the article which we were looking at earlier, the the fact that they rush you to do so many different things, like I think slowing things down here would have maybe been a better approach for Andy. A lot of times these threat actors put this time constraint, like, hey, you need to do this right now, and most of the time, this is something you can take a step back and avoid responding to this inbound communication. So if in this case Andy would have simply, like he said in the article, called the number in the back of his card, or would have had the thought process to say, you know what, let me just go to the bank physically, maybe a lot of this could have been avoided, because there's always a level of trust that keeps on moving forward based on that time urgency. So you're just kind of now thinking system one instead of system two thinking. So you're using the like quick automatic processes, kind of taking the lead of whoever's just dictating you because of the time crunch. Just as if you would take a test and you're running out of time, you start Christmas treeing stuff. That's kind of what happened to Andy.
Yeah.
So if you have the ability to slow down and think things through. Consult with someone else, a trusted person. Don't just follow guidance blindly from a stranger, basically. And ultimately these scams work based on taking advantage of our human psychology. When we're under pressure, under stress, we tend to make poor decisions. So slow
Yeah,
things down.
absolutely. Yeah, one key takeaway: avoid inbound communication. Right. So even if you think it's a common person at the bank that you've spoken to, say, hey, if you don't mind, let me call you back to their bank account number, bank phone number, and basically there you will know that you're getting somebody from the actual bank. Today's days with AI, they can basically clone that person's voice that you are very familiar with, and get taken by a scam again. So hang up the call. Take away, avoid inbounds communication. Hang up, make that call again.
Especially with your finances, always be skeptical. Most of these organizations, they don't call you for anything really. Like that's usually the first red flag. Felipe said it perfectly. Inbound communication. Why are they reaching out to me?
Banks will never ask for passwords. I mean, they make that very clear every time, especially when I get on the phone with them. Apple will never ask you for your password either. So that's how I think the MGM hack happened as well, right? They called in pretending to be somebody. They forfeited some passwords. So that inbound communication is extremely impactful in social engineering.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, we also have another topic similar to Andy Cohen, social engineering in a way, but actually backed by some nation states groups that have been attacking Microsoft. And I'll share my screen on this one. But basically, we have senior executives making the news, uh, seeing that they got hacked through what seems to be a lack of poor hygiene on a test environment. So these Russian hackers took advantage of a test environment as a foothold to then do lateral movement and start targeting Microsoft senior executives. And in hindsight, all this could have been prevented by better cyber hygiene, multi-factor authentication. So the account that was breached was using a single factor a password. Even though it was a test environment, most people just disregard test environments for having best practice on security. We're starting to see that even test environments are dangerous for production because those the test environments may have some points of trust where lateral movement can move forward. And this just goes to show that if the big guys, senior executives at Microsoft can get hacked, what's to say a small business can't get hacked, medium-sized business can't get hacked by not practicing the cyber hygiene that we all know. So just leaning into that, it happens to everyone. And if you don't enter the best practices into your environment, which is multi-factor, you're asking for it. So just another reminder here.
Absolutely, absolutely, Luis. Great points. Having test environments, obviously, especially in big productions, are a great idea. So you limit, downtime for production, any new rollouts that are implemented, and fixing on bugs. But these threat actors, they have nothing but patience. So what they're going to do is, if they are aware that this is a test environment, they can potentially even inject their code, wait, X amount of time until they roll this out into production, and they'll have more data to, at their disposal and accessible, basically.
Yeah, you shouldn't be fooled. The test environment is still part of your risk, uh, especially if there's any connection to production. So in this case, there was a connection to production, just people didn't know about it, and you let your guard down. So if you're a business owner or a team out there working on your test environments, you should kind of think twice, understand, if your test environment needs to be active all the time. Maybe you just spin it up a few times a week. Maybe you lock it down. Maybe you separate it completely. Separate logins, everything complete. Nothing touches production whatsoever. You have someone audit that. But yeah, definitely pretty interesting that these threat actors are getting this creative, and it just shows how many ways you can get attacked. So
Absolutely. So, we've talked about big companies like Microsoft, HP, got hacked recently as well this week. Andy Cohen, celebrity. And this week as well, a friend of mine called me, and basically what happened was their mom was part of a romance scam, a catfish scam, where they had sent, a certain amount of money, and basically somehow they got access to their emails, her email specifically, and at this point they don't know what else they have access to, perhaps their phone and etc., which means pictures as well, text messages, etc. So as you can see, no one is immune to these attacks, these social engineers, inbound calls. So same situation with this one; they received the call. So it seems to be a trend where these inbound calls or communications seem to be a very effective approach for these hackers to take advantage of.
and that's a big one. The chat based exploits where, hey, you have a romance with someone over the WhatsApp chat or any type of messenger, and they're exploiting you for money. It's quite insane to see that, actually, but it makes sense with the AI chatbots that we've been seeing. It's so easy to mass produce that, create a sentiment there. So, hey, I want you to be an AI bot with the purpose of being extra nice, extra supportive. I'll be the best friend for this person. I'll follow up with them every X amount of days. Make sure you send them a good morning text. Be romantic as much as possible. You prompt this AI uh, to basically be this person's you know love for them, and ultimately people take advantage of trust. Those are the common factors that we see, is trust being established very easily in us humans, and it sucks to think that way, that we have to be so skeptical,
It's unfortunate.
but it's a survival mechanism in this new age. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And just like that, we've come to an end of our weekly news roundup here on This Week Unwrapped. I hope you found our journey through today's headlines both enlightening and easy to digest. Remember, staying informed doesn't have to be complicated and overwhelming. I'm Felipe. I'm with Luis here, signing off, but not without a big thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed our simplified take on this week's events, don't forget to hit subscribe and share this podcast with friends and family. Your support helps us keep the news simple and accessible for you. Thank you, guys.